I was having a conversation with a friend the other day, and they said, boy, 2024, was there even one good TV show this year? To which I said, man, if only someone would make a video where they talked exclusively about the shows I watched this year. Anyway, bit of a difficult way to find out clairvoyance doesn't exist, so I had to make it myself. I bust out my video camera and tape recorder. Where's my tape player? Oh, come on, where is it? That'll do. And here we are. Just a quick disclaimer, this is going to be coming from a British perspective because, well, I live there. But you may notice that there's a bit of a skew towards some of the things I watched in 2024. But that's fine. Good telly is good telly, right? I think it's a little hard for me to have not talked about Mr. Bates versus the Post Office, really. Not only was it a huge cultural phenomenon here in the UK that has shifted public opinion in a way that I haven't seen, at least in this country, probably in my lifetime.
She cried 4 times for herself. It was a really disgraceful performance. And I think, yeah, it was appalling.
The Post Office started to install the new computer system to branches in 1999. Horizon, I think it's fair to say, had a few bugs in it. Crucially, however, there were errors with how it processed the ledger, meaning that it could end up showing that there was a loss when there wasn't. Written in the contracts was that you had to make up the losses out of your own pocket, which would make sense, except the Post Office may not have been conducting thorough enough investigations into reports of issues. They were also telling people who phoned support that they were the only people having these issues too. But the real kicker is that the Post Office have the power to circumvent certain aspects of the British judicial system, allowing them to prosecute people directly. You may be able to see how this could cause some problems. It's the Post Office though, how could it do wrong? You take letters there, they post them. They can also do your passport forms, get foreign currency, deposit money into your bank accounts. This may have been why it hit so hard with the British public. It's the Post Office. They just exist, you don't think about them. It's like the water pipe into your house, you just trust it's there and it's going to give you what you want. Actually, maybe that's a bad example. It really is a fascinating story though, and the satirical cum investigative magazine, Private Eye, who was one of the earliest reporters of this story, alongside Computer Weekly, has put together a great document that shows the key events up to 2020. As does BBC Radio 4 if you prefer to listen to the story. Links to these and more in the description for you. Okay, so the story is interesting, but that doesn't automatically make the show great. And I don't think I can commit to saying it's perfect. It definitely leans a bit into the human side of the story a little more than I would have liked, rather than presenting things in a neutral or accurate way. Almost going so far as potentially making the Post Office come across as cartoon villains. It was one step away from making them twirl their moustaches, especially with regards to Angela van den Bogaert. But, I mean, aside from that, it is a very well made drama that does an incredible job of making you feel the frustration the characters are going through. And for a show that takes place over the course of 20 years, it is paced rather quite well, despite the show only being 4 50-minute long episodes. I don't think you can fault the casting either. Everyone seems to be perfect for the role, and I know Toby Jones is well known on the world stage by this point, but Julie Hesmondhalgh, Will Mellor and Monica Dolan are able to carry some strong performances of their own. Hesmondhalgh especially, who seems to play wildly different roles every time I see them. Some good acting that. My boy Kai Owen making a brief cameo too. Where have you been all these years?
Aliens! In Cardiff!
Shock appearance from then sitting MP Nadeem Zahawi too, which hit like a freight train, let me tell you. But drama is ITV's bread and butter. It's what they're best known for here in the UK, with shows like Broadchurch, Midsummer Murders, and even an adaptation of Poirot that was so good it basically solidified David Suchet as the definitive version of that character. Mr. Bates vs. the Post Office is definitely going to be remembered, if not for its quality, but for finally being the thing to thrust this issue into the public limelight. Mr. Bates vs. the Post Office is currently available to watch on ITVX here in the UK, PBS in the US, and on 7plus in Australia. Rest of the world, I'm sure it's out there somewhere.
Now.
It's no secret that I've been a bit of a Doctor Who fan in the past. You know, fan.
It means fanatic, devoted to.
I mean, how could you not be? It's a charming concept. Someone who does nothing but wander time and space fixing problems. It's as close to an anthology series as episodic television can be without throwing all your characters away at the start of each story. Oh, and when the Doctor is about to die, they can basically make a new body, so actors leaving are a part of the show's story. Same Doctor, different face, and a slightly tweaked personality to match the new actor. And that's kind of what makes it exciting. And all a Doctor Who story needs to do to be good is have a strong antagonist, have likeable characters, but most importantly, just have fun with the concept without getting bogged down with the details.
Oh, is that it?
But Monatilla, I hear you cry from the rooftops. Don't you endlessly talk about Star Trek, which is nothing but the details? Well, my good chum, get yourself down from up there and let me tell you that they are very different shows with very different audiences, and it's fine to let them operate in their own way. But this is where Doctor Who excels and why I love the original Russell T Davies era of Doctor Who. As a quick refresher, in 2005, and after 9 years since the show's last appearance, it was rebooted by writer Russell T Davies, who at the time was best known for the show Queer as Folk. And I'm not accusing him of being obsessed with Doctor Who, but there is some strong evidence that might suggest this to be true.
Oh my God, you've got Genesis of the Daleks.
Yeah.
Oh, can we watch it?
We can watch it after, yeah?
Oh, can we watch it now?
But not only did Davies bring back Doctor Who, he gave it 2 supporting shows, each with their own deep lore that connects back to the core Doctor Who show. Each of them managed to keep the week-to-week focus on the individual stories, allowing for the lore to happen in the background. And it stayed, for the most part, fun. But where I started to fall out with Doctor Who was post-Davies' departure. Regular show writer and Doctor Who fan Stephen Moffat took the reins. Whilst they continued to write good stories, they made the shift to push the lore into the forefront, which started to remove that jovial side of the story. By the time Peter Capaldi took over as a Doctor, I no longer had the same love for it as I did before, and by Series 8 Episode 10, I tapped out. But still, 9 years watching a show weekly? Not bad, eh? When I heard that the man who made me fall in love with Doctor Who was coming back as showrunner, I was, and I'm not ashamed to admit it, uncharacteristically excited. Even if it was a little cheap to bring back David Tennant, who is arguably the most popular actor to have played the Doctor, besides maybe Tom Baker. But that was before my time. Now, I'm not going to focus on the 60th anniversary special because that wasn't 2024, but I will talk about the 15th Doctor's first series with Ncuti Gatwa at the helm. Right off the bat, I think Gatwa is a great Doctor. He brings to the role a certain energy that we haven't seen from a Doctor since David Tennant's 10th Doctor.
We have an intruder!
How did he get in? In through the window? Bye-bye.
But in a way that doesn't feel like it's derivative. Not that I would blame him because this happened. He laughs, he has fun, and not in the childlike way of Matt Smith's 11th Doctor or the condescending way of Peter Capaldi's 12th Doctor, but in a way where the energy he has just jumps off the screen, and that really helps to make these alien worlds have a great anchor point to attach yourself to. Alongside the Doctor usually stands a companion, a stand-in for the audience if you want to be entirely blunt. For this series, we have Ruby Sunday, and I must say, we didn't really click. The relationship between the two characters feels a little off in the way that Martha Jones and the 10th Doctor did, except that was intentional. However, much like Martha Jones, when the Doctor was removed from the equation and they were allowed to shine on their own, I actually found myself liking them more. In fact, 73 Yards was probably my favourite episode of the series. The Doctor suddenly disappears, but off in the distance is his figure, who looks like they're talking. They're constantly 73 yards away from Ruby no matter where she is. But people don't seem to notice it unless Ruby points it out to them. If someone talks to it, they'll be afraid of Ruby forever. It's a really interesting plot, and it could have served as a character-defining moment for the Doctor's companion, but by the next appearance it was back to the status quo. Oh, actually, on the topic of episodes, yeah, a little bit of a mixed bag. The Church on Ruby Road, Space Babies, and The Devil's Cord, which start off the storyline, were a bit too on the silly side for a Doctor Who story, almost feeling like it was overcorrecting for what come directly before it. But Boom was truly the start of what I can describe as quite a great run of episodes that felt like we were back in 2005.
Rob!
They didn't quite stick the landing with the final episode of the series. The payoff to both the series-long story arcs were individually a little weak, but combined felt like a little course correction had been made really late in the day. Like, everything but the last 10 minutes of the final episode were done, and it would be too expensive to do reshoots, and I've got this biryani in the fridge that's going to go off in a bit, and would it be alright if we just called it here, guys? Maybe it's supposed to be a subversion of that first series-long story arc Davies did back in 2005, but it didn't quite feel like that's what they were going for. I'm not asking for someone to hold my hand and say, this here, it's going to be a little different, okay? But if my reaction to a new piece of information is, if you say so. I don't know, I think we may have missed a step. Overall, however, I had fun with the series, and that's the main thing. The BBC want to treat this incarnation of Doctor Who as if it's its own thing. Much like when Davies took over in 2005, the reset button was hit, and that was the new Series 1 for Doctor Who. Now in 2024, the same thing has happened. So if you've never tried Doctor Who and want to know if this is a good place to jump back in, yeah, 100%. I'd say skip the 60th anniversary specials that are bundled alongside, as that does feel a bit like you need to know what came before.
What's gonna go wrong? Oh my god, I'm
Watch The Church on Ruby Road for context on who your protagonists are. Skip the next 2 episodes, even if The Devil's Cord does contain one of my favourite Doctor Who moments ever.
I've got a dog, he's called Fred. My dog is alive, he's not dead.
And just carry on from the episode, boom. I guarantee you'll have a romping time. 5 great stories to lose yourself in, and I'm excited to see what comes next. Give this year's Christmas special a go too, if just for the dinosaur scene. Like, there's a dinosaur, dude, what more do you want me to say? Actually, that would be my request for new Doctor Who episodes. More dinosaurs. Doctor Who is currently available to watch in the UK on BBC iPlayer and elsewhere on Disney+.
Micro radish. Fridge?
Yes, please. You break that box down?
Yup.
Returning for its 3rd series this year was The Bear. A show about the most stressful profession, set in the most stressful city, with a main character that looks like he was beaten up by Oasis herself. Okay, yeah, so for our usual audience, that's Blue Diamond, alright? Yeah, awesome. Now, The Bear is doing quite well in the States. When I visited last September, it was everywhere. But over here in the UK, I haven't seen a single mention of it anywhere. I only watched it because I had just finished another rewatch of sci-fi classic Starship Troopers when Disney Plus said, "Here you are! How about this, Chuck?" Which I thought was a little informal. I mean, we're barely even acquaintances. I started the show right before Series 3 started, and I was hooked pretty much straight away. Set in a sandwich shop in Chicago whose owner recently died, the shop is now in the hands of a Michelin star-rated chef. Now that's a premise. You want fish out of water? How about fish in the water? Poached. I mean, you should probably add some stock and maybe a bit of white wine to that water, but this analogy has fallen off the rails. My favourite episode of the show so far was Series 1 Episode 7 Review. After the opening titles, it's presented in its entirety in one shot, which makes for an absolutely breathtaking, intense viewing. Having worked in kitchens for a few years, I completely get the stress. I mean, the sound of those tickets coming through brought back more than a few memories. And I don't think that the show would have hit as hard for me if it didn't apply its food is more than just people fuel message to the production side of things. But it's beautifully shot, amazingly acted, and does a fantastic job of bringing the experience of working in a kitchen into your own home. It's clear that the writers, directors, and actors all care about not just the show, but the craft being portrayed in it.
Let's go! Thank you. Yo, restaurants forever!
I could talk about this show for hours, but we're talking 2024 television, so how was Series 3? Well, without going too deep into spoilers, you really should watch it. But Series 2 deals with the transformation of the shop into a more upmarket affair. Then Series 3 is the opening of the New Look restaurant, and it's not all plain sailing. The first episode of Series 3 follows on directly from the end of Series 2, and I don't think I've ever seen an episode that portrays that post-instant clarity that well. It's 37 minutes of how did I get to this point, told non-linearly, as these things often are, and set entirely to the dreamlike Together by Nine Inch Nails. It's rare to see an episode where a character just takes time to reflect in such a quiet way. I imagine if this was your first exposure to the show, you would have been confused as hell, and I'm not gonna lie, the thought of that makes me laugh. The rest of the series deals more with trying to figure out how to actually get yourself a Michelin star, and what chasing such a goal will do. Not just to you, but those around you, no matter how distant. And hey, you may not be chasing a Michelin star yourself. We've all known someone chasing a hard-to-reach goal, and if you don't, well, I'm not saying it's you, but when was the last time you got your 7 hours of sleep, huh?
Man needs his 7 hours. Keeps your mind sharp.
It's a great show that occasionally likes to experiment a bit, and considering its popularity, it kind of highlights that there is a bit of an appetite for shows that want to get a bit creative with its presentation. For those that already enjoy the show and were wondering where something like this has been all their lives, oh my goodness, Oz, BoJack Horseman, and a show we're going to talk about a little later on, Mad Men. These are all easily accessible, readily available, and yet are willing to tell you a great story in a slightly unconventional way. Am I saying that The Bear is as great as these shows? I'm going to have to wait until it's done telling its story first before I pass that judgment, but from what's been given to us so far, this loud, chaotic and foul-mouthed show has really rooted itself within me and managed to be just a little bit beautiful at the same time. The Bear is available to watch on Disney Plus worldwide and on Hulu in the US.
Maud! Maud!
If you were to tell me that I'd enjoy what is quite possibly the horniest show on television, I would have said, "You're a silly Billy." I'm not saying that I'm a prude, but I do think that there should be more to storytelling than getting a knob out. But the one thing that drew me to the show is what you could argue is its B-plot. The ITV franchise. It's such an important part of British cultural history, and yet it's so rarely brought up in conversation. In fact, one might go so far as to say that ITV are embarrassed about this aspect of their history. And actually, after watching this show, I can fully understand why. Even though this is produced by an ITV subsidiary, it is on Disney+. Quick history lesson. ITV used to be a collection of many different stations, each representing the region that they're based in. There were strict competition rules in place that forbade companies from taking others over, meaning that, in theory, I'm just going to stress that bit again, in theory, companies were supposed to be judged based on the value that they brought not just to the network as a whole, but to the regions that they shared under the watchful eye of the Independent Broadcasting Authority. That all changed in 1993 when the law was updated so that companies could take over each other, and within 10 years, ITV was effectively one station in England and Wales, one in Scotland, and one in Northern Ireland. There's a hell of a lot more to it than that, but there are people out there that can explain it far better than I could. Anyway, the B-plot of Rivals very much is about ITV franchises, albeit a fictional one. Corinium Television serves as the franchise holder for the Central Southwest region during a time where the next renewal is on the table. They look sure to win it until a rival company looks to put a bid in to run it instead. And that's the interesting part. I'm not saying that this show is for everyone though. I'd personally skip past all the sex scenes to get to the story if I really hated directors. At the end of the day, it is based on a romance novel, but I'd be hard-pressed to say if it didn't have something for most people to enjoy.
And on the day fourth form pupils begin studying for their new GCSE exams,
It's beautifully shot with an eclectic soundtrack and, most importantly, some great acting. Everyone was pretty much perfectly cast, especially Danny Dyer. I love seeing him in things. He's just one of those actors that always seems to be playing each character genuinely, and I love that. He brings a smile to my face every time he was on screen. Maybe that's because he plays the only character in the show that isn't a complete bastard.
I've just been making movies. I'm a actor, innit?
Hold on. I didn't show that clip for no reason.
Bit runty, isn't it? Skanky. Grubby, even.
Grubby? I am wearing Lynx Africa.
See? I know what I'm doing. Sometimes. I will talk about mongrels one day, because this show legitimately confuses me. Anyway, I will say this though, before I move on. In the final episode, Declan makes a speech about television and how powerful it is as a medium, and quite possibly the pinnacle of mankind's ability to tell stories. Being the Drury Middle's resident film fan, I should want to fight this statement, but I completely agree with it. Television kind of has replaced sitting around the fire, telling each other stories in a way that no other medium had up until that point, and one could argue since. Although this effect has diminished more in recent years due to the decline in popularity of linear broadcasting, television still occasionally delivers something that manages to become, and I know this is a tired analogy, a water cooler moment. As discussed above, Mr. Bates versus the Post Office, the Gavin and Stacey finale at Christmas, Celine Dion at the Olympics earlier this year. Films are an event, sure, and games definitely exist, but TV? It just hits different. Rivals gets the recommend, however, if you don't mind a little bit of smut, and is available to stream worldwide on Disney Plus and on Hulu in the US.
You have a skin tag, I just noticed for the first time.
Yeah, there's a lot going on with your face that I haven't pointed out, but...
What? A film? On a TV list? Yeah, and this might just be my most controversial one yet, but I legitimately don't know when I'm ever going to talk about this film. It's my video, I can do what I want. Straight up, I love this film. I don't care that it only has a 6 on IMDb. I don't care that there's no likeable characters. I don't even care that this film isn't available to buy anywhere in the country I live in. So I had to jump through some unsavoury hoops to get my hands on it. Please, Bob Billington, please let me give you some money. But what it is a beautiful love letter to the art of existentialism.
You hear the one about the guy goes to the doctor. Doctor gives him 6 months to live. He can't pay his bill. Doctor gives him another 6 months.
A topic that fascinates me to no end, by way of just relentlessly mocking the very topic it's tackling. So, I accidentally stumbled across this film whilst doing research into a show I was watching. I saw the synopsis, and it made me laugh. I saw the trailer, and it made me laugh even harder.
All your behavior is odd to me. I keep expecting you to sound sort of worldly and professorial, but instead it's more like someone who's somewhere in between 14 and 16.
15?
A man is told he has 6 months to live, and he's completely nonplussed by this information. He then spends the rest of the film trying to somewhat leave an impact on the world, but in a way that will negatively affect his image. As someone who's been questioning what exactly legacy means in this day and age, it was an interesting perspective on that. But I don't think I had a stronger reaction to a film since perhaps The Lighthouse, which we have already talked about on an episode of what's called a podcast?
Our group left the cinema 10 minutes into this movie when we understood it was in black and white. This is 2020, and I would implore the producers to at least include an option to view a colorized version of this movie as an extra disc.
Man, has Dream Middle really been around for 5 years? How embarrassing. Link to that below. And Lousy Carter is only 18 minutes long. In Outdone. It's actually incredible. Filmmakers, take note. The more I say about the film, the more it's going to ruin it. So just go into it as blind as you can. I think the trailer does a bad job of selling what the film is actually about, so maybe skip it. But I'll close by saying it's a great script with awkward to the point of hilarity delivery, set in a world hated by its characters.
You're teaching that Tolstoy class, right? Yeah. I get Tolstoy mixed up with the other one.
Dostoevsky.
Yeah.
That's sad.
Yeah, that's not.
High recommendation. Lousy Carter is available to buy and rent digitally in the US, and for the rest of the world, good luck. Now, a quick word about some things I watched for the first time in 2024. These are a little older, so I'm going to speed through them, but all good nonetheless. The hottest show of 1976 is back, baby! Follow the life and times of some of Rome's most famous emperors. A family split down the middle between those who want Rome to once again be a republic and those who want it for themselves. Although, as a slight twist, it's the emperors who want it to be a republic. Ooh! Now, the thing to know about this show is that it's kind of filmed more as a play than as a TV show. Editing is basically non-existent, there's no music, and at times there's only one camera that just never seems to cut away. But in return, you are rewarded with a gripping story of murder and double-crossing, sets that are awesome in their scale, and acting from a cast that is absolutely stacked. I mean, Derek Jacobi, Sian Phillips, Brian Blessed, George Baker, and John Hurt, and that's just the top billing. I didn't even mention Patrick Stewart. 100% worth a watch. And one day, I'd like to return to it, as it may just be my favourite show of all time. iClaudius is currently available to buy digitally and on DVD, which at the time of writing is on sale. Go on!
You're handsome, aren't you?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Your name is Handsome?
No, my name is Hanson, but everybody calls me that.
Really wanted to do a video on Mad Men, but just couldn't find enough to say that hadn't already been said. I guess that's the problem with tackling shows that finished Check's calendar nearly 10 years ago. But the long and short of it is that I'm a little perplexed as to why it doesn't seem to pop up in discussions about the greatest TV shows of all time. You hear a lot about The Sopranos, Breaking Bad and The Wire, but Mad Men barely gets so much as a passing mention. Oz fans, before you start typing, calm. I like the show too, but it isn't quite on the same level, I'm sorry. I'm sure that statement will generate zero issues. Whatever. Set during the height of the American advertising golden age, it follows Don Draper and the fictional Sterling Cooper agency as they pitch campaigns to the biggest corporations of the day. If it sounds boring, you're partially correct, and I guess that's why I gravitated towards the show. It doesn't do anything quickly, it's a slow and well thought out show. I mean, if the show devolved into action every week, you'd get a little concerned, but it's a show that'll give you great characters going about their daily lives whilst having a little bit of a drink along the way. Mad Men is available to watch on Netflix and for free on You in the UK and on AMC Plus in the US. And if you're confused about the change of name from UK TV to You, me too, let's hang out.
And I'm not doing terribly, am I?
I love the way that they've sandblasted everything around here. It's so clean.
Self-described as the West Wing, only with bad teeth and more swearing, is a look behind the scenes of a chaotic civil service, a program that those who work in the industry have said is scarily accurate. Americans may be familiar with the show Veep, which is quite similar, unsurprising considering that the two shows share creative talent. The thick of it is a really masterful exercise in how to impose tense situations through framing and acting alone, and I absolutely commend this show for not once using a piece of music outside of what's diegetic. This lack of flashy editing adds to the raw feeling of the series, almost like you're peeking into something you probably shouldn't be.
Stuff it in his fucking head. Stuff it in his big baby head.
Get that fucking cheese over there.
But it's something I wish more shows would do. It really lets great actors and brilliant writing shine. Anyway, this is one of the most popular British shows of recent memory, so I'm not going to go too much into it. But for a show that ran for nearly 7 years, 24 episodes isn't that many. Or maybe it is here in the UK, that's hard to say. The thick of it is available to watch on BBC iPlayer in the UK and on BritBox and Peacock in the US. Well, I hope you enjoyed listening to this old fool which one about television. If you enjoyed, we'd really appreciate a sub or a like, as it helps us a lot. Oh, and please let me know if I missed anything off the list. I'm always looking for something new to enjoy. And just in case some of you were wondering, that 3-hour video, it was a viewer request for Star vs. the Forces of Evil, and it unfortunately might take a little longer than expected to come out. Sorry about that, but see you in the future.
Jerry.